Saint Mangat Ram Ji's biography, episode 4. In 1940, Mangat Ji or Maharaj Ji went to the town Chinari in India. Citizens of Chinari, like the people in rest of India, were ignorant about true religion. Their sole purpose in life was eating, drinking, and being merry. They lied and cheated, but believed that their sins were forgiven by visiting a temple weekly. They had no interest in satsang or congregation attended by a perfect saint. A priest in Chinari was threatened by the master's presence. He was afraid that people would stop donating him money. He spread a rumor that Mangat Ji suffered from an infectious disease. People easily believed him because Mangat Ji was thin and emaciated because of his minimum diet. People of Chinari had no moral or ethical life. Old people had no wisdom. Children did not obey parents. Very few people came in satsangs. Mangat Ji was not discouraged by poor attendance. It was unfortunate that Chinari's population did not benefit from Maharaj Ji, who shone there like the sun. The sun obeys God's will and does his duty. It does not make difference to the sun whether people benefit from his light or not. Maharaj Ji was like a farmer and Chinari was like an infertile and rocky ground. But even this infertile ground had a few spots where seeds thrown by the master started growing. A poor Muslim who lived in a forest came for darshan, which is seeing a saint. He devotedly brought milk and fruit as gifts. Maharaj Ji usually did not accept gifts from strangers, but this simple man's pure love could not be refused. The disciples now wanted to give a name to the congregation. Maharaj Ji was reluctant to do this because he did not want to start another religion or sect. There had already been so much strife and bloodshed in the name of religion. But at the repeated request of the congregation, he named it Sangat Samtavad, the holy congregation, which was like God's command for Maharaj Ji. Samta means equanimity. We must obey God's will and remain same in happiness or misery. Sri Samta Prakash, the holy book containing the divine utterance or the Vani, was completed. The master blessed Bhagat Ji or Banarsi Das. He said Bhagat Ji's name would live forever because he scribed the Vani. Any person who reads or recites the Vani or divine utterance would obtain supreme happiness and peace. The master went through penance or tapas for 1 month. Slowly, the indifferent citizens of Chinari realized that he was a precious diamond whose worth they had failed to comprehend. People of Chinari repented for their earlier indifferent attitude and requested Maharaj Ji to give a discourse. There was a satsang or holy discourse for 18 days in which almost every person of the town came. The master was going to leave the town at the last day of the satsang. Every person was very sad. Mangat Ji told them that they were right about their fear of infection from him. Now they had also caught the infection of God's love from him. On hearing this, tears flowed profusely from their eyes. Next chapter, the Mahamantra. Maharaj Ji came to benefit the world like the sun. He showered his grace not only the people who met him in person, but also on the future age. He initiated the disciples who met him in person by giving them a secret mantra or syllabes with potency to please God. He gave Maha Mantra or the great mantra for the coming generations. And Maha Mantra says, Om Brahm Satyam Nirankar Ajanma Advait Purkha Sarvyapak Kalyan Murat Parmeshwarai Namastam. It means that we give our obeisance to Almighty God who is absolute truth, formless, birthless, non-dual and all-pervading. According to Maharaji, any person who meditates with the Maha Mantra can have samadhi or a state of deep meditation in which all consciousness of the outer world is transcended. God did not abandon his children. He came in the form of the perfect master for the suffering mankind. He revealed himself to us as the Maha Mantra. The Maha Mantra is the bridge between the visible world and the invisible God. The Maha Mantra seems to be just a few syllables, but it is very potent. Just as a tiny seed gives rise to a giant tree, similarly the Maha Mantra planted in the heart of a disciple who surrenders completely to the Master leads to God. In a town called Shapur Kundi, the people came to know about Master's intense tapas or penance. They wanted to meet him but were afraid of the ghosts. They requested him to come for the satsang in the town. The compassionate master agreed, even though he did not need anything from people. Hindus and Muslims both loved Maharaji. His message was universal. It made Hindu a better Hindu and Muslim a better Muslim. Even though he was a Hindu by birth, Muslims invited Mangat Ji to speak in mosques. The master told that religion does not consist of rituals only. Keeping long hair or having a mark on the forehead is not a religion. It is also useless to torture one's body. The master said that we should see God in every human being. There should be no religious fanaticism. Those days, there was much hatred between Hindus and Muslims. Many priests of both religions were spreading religious hostility. Maharaji tried to decrease this intolerance. The Brahmins or Hindu priests did not treat other castes well. When people invited Brahmins, they told people to get out of their own homes. The Brahmins cooked their own food themselves because they believed that a food touched by other castes becomes polluted. People were like lost sheep in the absence of a perfect master. Maharaji once came to know that the Brahmins in a village were refusing to perform the marriage ceremony of a Shudra, which is the lowest caste in Hindus. Shudras were despised and considered untouchable during those days. The master said that just like any human being, Shudras are also children of God. Because high caste Hindus hated and mistreated them, many of them converted to Muslim religion. This poor custom always weakened and divided the country, and foreign rulers took advantage of its vulnerability. He ordered some Brahmin disciples to go and perform the marriage ceremony at once. Next day, many Shudras came to the holy congregation. The Brahmins of the village promised that they would not wrong the Shudras in the future. Next chapter, the cremation ground. The master used to travel extensively to help the suffering mankind. He stayed in his own village only for a very limited period. In 1941, an old disciple requested the master to visit his town called Thatta. This disciple was unable to travel because of his poor health. The compassionate master graciously accepted his invitation. Thatta was a very dangerous place because many violent dacoits lived nearby. There were many murders all the time and the streets were deserted in the evenings. But the master knew no fear and asked Bhagaji or Banarsi Das to accompany him outside in midnight for his meditation. Maharaji looked for a secluded place for his tapas or prolonged and uninterrupted meditation. As he did not find a suitable place, he started his prolonged meditation in the cremation ground of the town. The master uttered the Vani or divine poetry during his penance. The Vani or divine poetry talked about significance of the Nad. Is also called the Shabad or the word. All of us have the light and sound of the Shabad or the word within us, but our mind is impure like a dirty bulb, and this light is unable to shine through. When the mind is constantly cleaned with intense meditation and selfless service, the light becomes visible. This light and sound is the essence of the universe. The person who experiences this light and sound knows everything. Maharaji went to the town for satsang or holy association in the evening. He spent his nights meditating in the frightening cremation ground. Bhagaji or Banarsi Das slept on the ground covered with human bones during his days and scribed the Vani or divine poetry during his nights. One day, some people came to cremate a dead relative. After the cremation ceremony, they talked to the master. Maharaji said that the cremation ground is the final resting place for both rich and the poor. We waste our life in hollow worldly pleasures and repent at the time of our death. Death teaches us that this world is not our true home. We have been walking blindly for countless lives. Only in the human form we have the capacity to get liberated from the endless cycle of the births and deaths. We are hopelessly entangled in the web of our actions. Only Guru the True knows how to cut this web. We are attached to the outcome of our actions. Guru the True teaches us to surrender outcome to God. The action then becomes an act of worship. This inner renunciation of the fruit of our action is the true renunciation. We do not need to leave our home and job to find God. It was difficult to scribe the divine poetry as the weather was very cold. Bhagaji often warmed his hands on a cremation fire. Sometimes Maharaji uttered the divine poetry whole night. According to Maharaji, we find it difficult to concentrate during our meditation because we have numerous desires from our previous lives. Meditation cannot be learned by reading its technique from a book. Only Guru the True, who is liberated, can teach it to us. In order to meditate, we need to eat and sleep less. We should not waste our life in sensual pleasures. If anything good happens, we take all the credit. When anything bad happens, we blame God. Maharaji was always humble. He believed that God did everything. He was merged in his beloved. Maharaji said that our body is like a machine which is always doing some action. Our actions can bind or liberate us depending on how we do them. We need to remember that God is the doer and leave the outcome of our actions to Him. Even though the language of the Vani or divine poetry is very simple, it contains the essence of all the wisdom of the scriptures. We are fortunate that He was born to guide us in the present Iron Age. Bhagat Ji or Banarsi Das scribed the divine poetry despite severe cold. One day he brought some firewood. Maharaji said that sensory enjoyment and yoga cannot be done at the same time. He told Bhagat Ji to tolerate the cold. Bhagat Ji of Banarsi Das threw away the firewood. This was contrary to the teaching of many other teachers. They said that their followers could enjoy all kinds of sensory pleasures and still obtain liberation. The disciples also wanted an easy way out and meditated on their sofas and beds. Maharaji said that the reaching God easily is only a wishful thinking. We do not get worldly riches without hard work. We have to strive much harder to earn spiritual wealth. A Muslim devotee once told Maharaji the story of a woman saint named Rabia. Maharaji was so moved that tears flowed from his eyes. Rabia, or this woman saint, had a very sad and tragic life. She did not have enough food or shelter during her early life. Circumstances forced her to become a slave of an evil man. She did not complain even when things were going worse for her. She surrendered completely to God's will. This surrender suddenly opened the door of His grace. She was flooded with His light and became one with Him. There are three qualities of the primordial matter. We are ruled by these three qualities. In sattva guna or quality, we want to remember and serve God. Rajas guna or rajas quality leads to action and sensory indulgence. Tamas quality or guna causes laziness, deceiving, stealing, and gambling. We can transcend these three qualities with meditation. It purifies our intellect and we start disliking excessive sensory indulgence. The divine poetry was written in a cremation ground. We do not want to face the ultimate truth of our own mortality. When we accept death, we realize that the world is only a transient show. Lord Shiva, god of destruction in Hindu mythology, is said to live in the cremation ground. Maharaji blessed the terrible cremation ground with his stay there. He gave us gift of the divine poetry or Vani, which is an oasis in the burning desert of this world. Next chapter, the message. Maharaji had conquered his body and he did not have any needs himself, but he roamed everywhere to help the suffering mankind. He was an ocean of love. He called everyone affectionately as a premi or devotee of God. He liked even his enemies. Only he was capable of such unconditional love. In 1942, he went to a village in district Gurdaspur, Punjab. He spent a night in a temple. There was no satsang or holy association there. People were only smoking and talking of worldly things. Even ascetics were also smoking. The persons who were supposed to guide others were themselves blind. Maharaji talked about the truth. Many people did not want to hear it because they were like sick people who did not like the bitter medicine of the truth. Maharaji was doctor of the soul. The persons who avoided seeing him were unfortunate. In 1943, Maharaji went to a village called Golra. He went there uninvited by anyone, and the villagers were initially indifferent towards him. He, however, was not discouraged. He was doing karma yoga and leaving outcome to God. But slowly the magic of his extraordinary personality started working and people started attending his the satsangs or sublime association. Most of people in Golra were non-vegetarian and used alcohol. Maharaji said that he would leave the village unless they vow not to use alcohol or meat. All the villagers promised in writing and the whole village was transformed. During those days, city people were becoming more ostentatious. They copied West and spent all their time in fashion. In village, people were superstitious. They believed in ghosts and sacrificed innocent animals to many gods and goddesses. Maharaji tried to remove ignorance of people. Maharaji said that satsang or sublime association should be simple and no musical instrument should be played there. Music becomes a distraction and people do not try to understand the real message of the satsang. Maharaji said that only in a satsang we understand the truth and the illusion of the phenomenal world. A fly likes to sit on dirt. It does not like to sit on a fragrant flower. Similarly, a person trapped in delusion or maya does not like to attend a satsang or holy association. Everyone is searching for peace and true happiness. Most people futilely search for it in outer sense pleasures. It can be attained only in satsang or holy association. Maharaji held satsangs in the evening so that people could come easily, but only a few people came. He said that in this iron age, everyone is worshipping illusion. There is so much vanity. People spend all their time in decorating their bodies. Several people attend temples and mosques, but they fail to get peace because of their impure mind. People spend all their time in watching television and films. Even in such intense darkness, there is still God's light somewhere. He continues to send perfect masters to help his suffering children. Maharaji advised people to follow 5 principles. They are simplicity, truth, service, satsang or holy association, and remembrance of God. We are so busy these days. In the morning, we rush on the freeways. In this age of the internet, we have so much information about so many things, yet we do not bother to know about the most basic questions. What is the purpose of life? What is the power which enables us to speak? Where were we before we were born? Are we our body or something else? We are extremely fortunate to be blessed with a human body. God has given us capital of this body to earn wealth of God's name, but we waste it in useless pursuits. For countless past lives we have suffered by pursuing worldly pleasures, but we have still not learnt our lesson. We keep on getting entangled in the web of Maya or the illusion of phenomenal world. Our human brain is wired to worship some god. We worship false gods of power, money, sex and food. We fail to worship true God. According to the law of karma, good actions result in the harvest of happiness. We reap bitter fruit of unhappiness on doing bad actions. God has blessed us with a sharp intellect, but we are destroying the planet and poisoning the rivers. We are out of harmony with the universe. We are our own worst enemies. We spend half our life in sleeping and the other half is depleted in making a living. When we are old, our children waste our hard-earned money. We fail to spend it for a good cause. We accumulate wealth with unfair means by trampling upon the rights of others. We behave as if we are going to stay in this world forever. This money is taken away at the time of the death. Spiritual treasure is the only real capital. Many people think that their children would take care of them in old age, but children would be busy with their own problems. The number of old people is increasing constantly. Many of them do not see any purpose in their life. Money cannot take away the pain and misery of disease. When the old person is alive, no one cares about him. When he dies, his family arranges a grand and extravagant funeral for him. This is done so that others would admire them. Everyone gives long speeches in his praise at that time. All of our life is wasted in useless worship of the Maya or illusion of the phenomenal world. The only things which can help us are service, meditation, and holy association of a perfect master. One disciple asked, "We are too attached to the word but not to God. How can we reduce our affinity for the word?" Maharaji replied that our word exists only because of our restless mind. We see word according to our inclination. If someone is positive, he sees the word as a happy place. If someone is paranoid, he sees the word as a threatening place. The attachment or detachment exists only because of our mind. The scientists investigate the material universe, but there is no end to its mystery. At one time, they believed that the atom is the smallest particle, but later they discovered even smaller subatomic particles. We can never find mental peace by investigating the material universe. Peace can be found only by meditating and experiencing the Shabad or the word. In ancient times, the alchemists searched for the philosopher's stone. The Shabad is that philosopher's stones. We think that material universe is real because it seems real to our senses, but our senses deceive us all the time. Our eyes tell us that the sun revolves around the earth, but that perception is not true. In a burning desert, a deer sees illusion of water. It starts running after that false chimera and dies after a futile chase. All our life we also run after mirages like this deer. A man works all his life to amass a fortune, but he becomes prisoner of his own web. His wealth becomes his own master. The happiness attained by realizing God cannot be described in words. One can know it only by experiencing it. All else is mere talk.